If you've been following this series, you already know Agile at the team level. Your sprints, your stand-ups, your retrospectives, you know that workflow. Well, today we're going to answer a question that has been coming up at work. And that is, what happens when you need Agile to work across multiple teams? Well, the answer to that question is SAFe, the Scaled Agile Framework. Now, this is the second of a two-part series. In the first video, we laid the foundation, and we're going to dig a bit deeper into this one. So if you're just finding this video, start with part one first. The link is in the description below and in the card above. Now, with that out of the way, we'll cover how SAFe actually works, what it looks like in practice, and what you can do with it this week, even if your company hasn't started a SAFe transformation yet. Here's the problem. We know that Agile works brilliantly at the team level. One team, one backlog, 2-week sprints. You can move fast and stay flexible. But the moment you have 5, 10, even 20 teams all trying to deliver parts of the same product, man, everything gets complicated. Like, who decides which team works on what? And what happens when 2 teams build features that conflict with one another? Or how does leadership stay informed without micromanaging every team? These are real, painful problems that standard Agile just can't answer. Also, don't forget, SAFe isn't Agile with more meetings. It's a coordination layer that sits on top of your existing Agile teams and gives them a shared rhythm, shared priorities, and a shared language, without taking away how each team works day to day. Now, SAFe is not intended to replace Scrum or Kanban at the team level. Your teams keep running their sprints inside SAFe, and they work however they need to be most effective. It also doesn't make delivery waterfall all of a sudden. You're still shipping in short cycles. It also doesn't mean that you have one giant process for everyone. SAFe comes in different sizes depending on how big your organization is. Now, speaking of sizes, SAFe has 4 configurations ranging from a single team of teams all the way up to a full enterprise. For this video, we're focusing on the core version, which is called Essential SAFe. That's the foundational layer, and it's where every organization really should start. If you're just getting introduced to SAFe, Essential SAFe is really where you need to understand right now. All right, so let's take a look at how SAFe actually works. I'm going to walk you through 4 concepts. Each one builds on the last, so buckle up. The first and most important concept in SAFe is the Agile Release Train, or ART. Think of it as a team of teams. And ART typically includes 5 to 12 Agile teams, anywhere from 50 to 125 people, all working together on the same product or part of the product. Now, what makes an Agile Release Train different from just having a lot of teams clumped together? Well, they all run on the same schedule. They have the same planning cadence, they have the same delivery milestones, they have the same checkpoints. That shared rhythm is the whole point. It's what allows dozens of people to stay coordinated without a massive command and control management structure. Think of it like a commuter train. It doesn't wait for you. It runs on a schedule, and if you want to be on it, you have to align to that schedule. The ART works the same way. Teams align to its cadence, and that creates predictability across the whole group. So let's take a look at some of the key roles in an Agile release train. We have the Release Train Engineer, or RTE. This is the coach and facilitator for the entire ART. Think of this as the Scrum Master for the entire team of teams. They run the big events and clear roadblocks that individual teams just can't fix themselves. We also have product management. They own the list of features that the ART is working toward. They set clear priorities and keep the vision clear. And then we have our business owners. These are the executives or stakeholders who care most about what the ART delivers. They need to stay engaged throughout the entire thing, not just at the end. Now, you're going to hear the term ART a lot from here on out. Every time I say it, remember, Agile Release Train. Agile Release Train. This is your team of teams running on a shared schedule. Now, before we move on, I want you to think about your organization right now. Surely there's one person who already does kind of what this release train does, informally and without the title, most likely. So who is that one person that's bridging teams and clearing roadblocks? Drop their role in the comments. I'd like to see what type of person we have across these different organizations that is doing this work. Now, that brings us to our second concept, which is the program increment planning, or PI planning. Now that you know what an ART is, here's how it plans its work. Every 8 to 12 weeks, the entire ART, all teams, all leadership, product management, business owners, all come together for a 2-day event called PI planning. Now, PI stands for program increment, and it's basically a quarter's worth of work that there's being planned out. In those 2 days, teams look at the top priorities from the product backlog. They figure out what each team will build over the next increment. And they map out where teams might end up hitting dependencies on one another. And they commit to a set of goals called PI objectives for the upcoming increment. Now, here's the critical piece. The teams write the plan themselves. Leadership sets the context and the priorities, but it's the teams that do the planning. And that's what makes it agile rather than top-down scheduling. Now, you might be thinking that 2 days with anywhere from 50 to 125 people sounds really expensive. And it is. But here's the math. 2 days of coordinated planning versus 4 months of misaligned work. Well, organizations that run PI planning well typically cut their cycle times dramatically because everyone starts on the same page and stays there. Here's a quick pro tip for you. So, PI planning works best in person. The informal conversations, the quick alignments that happen in the hallways and over coffee, they're genuinely hard to replicate over video calls. So if your organization is doing remote PI planning, build in extra time for teams to sync before the formal sessions. Now, here's our third concept: inspect and adapt. At the end of every program increment, the ART runs an event called Inspect and Adapt, or I&A for short. Now, this is the retrospective at scale. It has 3 parts. The first one is a system demo, which every team shows what they built as a cohesive working system. This is actually a working software, not a slide deck. Second, they do a quick review of the numbers. How much did we plan to deliver versus how much did we actually deliver? Kind of like a burn down chart. And then third, and then this is the one that really makes the real difference here, problem-solving workshops. The Agile release train picks the top things that slow them down and builds a concrete plan to fix them before the next program increment. And this is how an ART gets better over time, not just faster. Without the inspect and adapt, you run PI after PI, but you never improve the system. And with it, you have a structured moment every quarter to get better at the work, not just the work itself. And that leads us to our fourth concept, that this is one component where no framework can automate, and the one that makes or breaks safe transformations. And that's your leadership's behavior. SAFe is explicit about this in a way that most frameworks aren't. Leaders inside a SAFe organization are expected to operate as servant leaders. That means if you're a leader, it's your job to remove the obstacles your teams can't remove themselves, not to direct their daily work. Let's pause on that for a moment. As a leader in a SAFe organization, your job is to remove the blockers, not to direct your team in their daily work. It means that your team's growth and capability is your most important long-term output, and it means that you have to actually practice SAFe yourself, not just sponsor it. And this is a tough one. SAFe transformations will stall. Not because ceremonies are wrong or the tooling wasn't set up or whatever, but because the leaders still operate like it's a waterfall project. They attend PI planning but don't engage with team risks. They endorse Agile publicly, but don't really engage with it behind the scenes. If your SAFe transformation is struggling, check the leadership behavior first. In most cases, that's where the gap is. Okay, so this is a lot of theory, and let's talk about what it actually looks like to get started with SAFe. I'm going to give you 3 steps. Not because the process is simple, but because if you try to do everything all at once, it'll fall apart. So the first step is to build your internal capability first. And so before you form an Agile release train, you need people who understand how to run one. That means training your release train engineers, your product managers, and your key leaders. SAFe has a certification path, of course, if you want to go formal, but at a bare minimum, the people leading the transformation need to understand the framework before they can try to scale it. Step 2 is to map out your value streams before you organize your teams. Now, a value stream is simply the path your work takes from customer request to delivered product. Before you stand up your art, map that path. Where does work start? Which teams need to touch it? Where does it sit waiting? This exercise alone surfaces more organizational dysfunction than most leaders would expect, and it tells you how to group your teams logically, rather than just copying from your existing org chart. The third step is then just to launch one art. Run it for at least 3 PI cycles before you judge it. Pick one value stream, form one art, run your first pipelining, and it will be imperfect, and that's completely normal. The institutional knowledge you build in that first increment is irreplaceable. So don't try to launch multiple arts simultaneously. Don't try to implement full SAFe before essential SAFe is running well. Start focused, learn deliberately, and then expand. Here's another pro tip for you. The number one predictor of successful SAFe launches is whether your most senior leaders are actively participating in that PI planning. Not just attending, but actually engaging with the teams. They respond to risks in real time and visibly adjust priorities when the data tells them to. If your executives are just sitting here in the back of the room like this, just watching, your transformation will stall. So get them on board. So let's take a quick minute, and I'm going to be honest with you about SAFe, because this series is about giving you the real picture, not just the framework's marketing page. SAFe does work, and obviously it takes a lot of leadership commitment, and it will deliver on its promise, but there are real trade-offs. Now, the most common criticism that you'll hear is SAFe is heavy and bureaucratic. That criticism is fair, particularly when organizations implement more framework than they need. The fix is to right-size it. Start with essential SAFe. Add complexity only when you have outgrown what you currently have. The second thing that you'll hear is that program increment planning is too expensive. 50 to 125 people for 2 days every quarter, that's a real cost. The honest answer is that you have to measure what you've already spent on misalignment, rework, and reorgs. For most large organizations, the PI planning investment is a small fraction of what misalignment costs them. And finally, SAFe can reduce team autonomy if you let it. The framework doesn't require that, but it happens when leaders use their structure to direct work rather than enable it. You really need to guard against that explicitly and deliberately. Just like any other framework, the one that succeeds is the one that gets adapted to fit the organization. Unless you're a startup, it's unrealistic to contort the organization to fit that framework. Now, before I let you go, here are 3 things that you can do right now, whether or not your organization is doing SAFe. The first one is to map out one workflow. We've talked about this. So pick any process in your organization and draw it out from start to finish. Where does work just sit waiting? Where are the handoffs? Where are the dependencies? Map the starting points for every scaling conversation. You don't need SAFe to do this. You just need a whiteboard and like an hour or 2. The second one is to name your biggest cross-team dependency. In most organizations, 1 or 2 team-to-team handoffs cause the majority of delays. Name that one that slows your work down the most, write it down, and assign an owner to it to deal with it. Visibility alone solves more than half the problem in most cases. And then have the servant leadership conversation. If you manage people, schedule a one-on-one this week with a specific agenda. Ask your team member what you could stop doing that would help them move faster. Then actually stop doing that thing. That single habit is the foundation of the leadership change SAFe asks for. Now look, SAFe was one of the most effective tools available for scaling Agile, and one of the easiest to overcomplicate. Start with one art, run it well, and let it teach you what you need to do next. In our next video, we're going to look into lean project management, what it actually means and how it's different from Agile, and how you can use lean thinking to cut waste from your workflows right now. This is where I got my start in project management, and I'm really excited to share it with you. So if you found this video helpful, please subscribe, hit that notification bell, share, do your thing. So make sure you don't miss out on the next one. Hey, I appreciate you being here. I'll catch you in the next video.